There is a number that should stop every woman over 60 in her tracks. According to the International Osteoporosis Foundation, 1 in 3 women over 50 will break a bone due to osteoporosis in her lifetime. 1 in 3. And yet, the conversation around bone health almost always starts after the first fracture, when the doctor prescribes calcium supplements and sends you home with a pamphlet you have already read. What rarely gets mentioned in that office visit is that there are plants you can grow right now in your own backyard or on your own windowsill that support bone density in ways supplements alone cannot replicate. Welcome to Everyday Harvest, where we believe the most powerful medicine often grows in the garden. Today, we are walking through 9 plants that strengthen weak bones naturally, backed by research that has been sitting in journals for years while the prescription pad got all the attention. Number 7 is one your grandmother probably grew without knowing what it was doing for her skeleton. Plant number 1, stinging nettle. If you have ever brushed against nettle while walking through a field or along a woodland edge, you remember the sting. That brief burning sensation comes from tiny hollow hairs on the leaves and stems that inject histamine and formic acid when touched. But once nettle is harvested, dried, or cooked, the sting disappears completely, and what remains is one of the most nutrient-dense plants on the planet. Nettle contains calcium, magnesium, potassium, and vitamin K in significant amounts, all of which are directly involved in bone mineralization. But the compound that sets nettle apart for bone health is silica. Silica is a trace mineral that plays a critical role in the formation of collagen, the flexible protein framework that gives bones their tensile strength. Without adequate collagen, bones become brittle even if calcium intake is sufficient. A 2013 study published in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research confirmed that dietary silica intake is positively associated with bone mineral density in postmenopausal women. Nettle is one of the richest plant sources of this mineral. Historically, nettle was used across Europe for joint pain and bone weakness. Traditional herbalists would harvest young nettle shoots in early spring and prepare them as a tonic specifically for older adults complaining of aching bones. The plant grows vigorously in moist, rich soil and can be cultivated in a dedicated garden bed or large container. Harvest the top leaves before the plant flowers, wearing gloves for obvious reasons, and use them fresh in soups, dried for tea, or blanched and frozen. A daily cup of nettle tea delivers a meaningful dose of the minerals your skeleton is quietly asking for.
Plant number 2, dandelion. Most people spray dandelions. A few people eat them. Very few understand what this plant is actually doing underground. Dandelion has a taproot that can extend more than a foot into the soil, drawing up minerals that shallow-rooted plants never reach. The leaves are exceptionally rich in calcium, containing more per gram than kale or spinach. They also supply boron, a trace mineral that helps the body retain both calcium and magnesium and plays a key role in vitamin D metabolism. Without adequate boron, calcium supplements are significantly less effective because the body cannot properly utilize what it receives. A study from the USDA Grand Forks Human Nutrition Research Center found that postmenopausal women who consumed adequate boron showed improved calcium retention and bone formation markers compared to those with low boron intake. The root of the dandelion also supports liver function, and the liver is where vitamin D is converted into its active form. So, dandelion works on 2 fronts. It delivers the minerals bones need directly, and it supports the organ system that activates vitamin D to make those minerals usable. Every part of this plant is edible. Young leaves go into salads, older leaves into cooked dishes, roots roasted for a coffee substitute, flowers into fritters or tea. Dandelion grows without any help in almost every climate. If you have a lawn, you probably already have a bone health garden and just did not know it. Plant number 3, horsetail. Horsetail is a plant that looks like it belongs in a prehistoric landscape, and in a sense, it does. The horsetail family is more than 300 million years old, older than the dinosaurs, and it has survived every mass extinction event since. The reason horsetail matters for bone health comes down to its extraordinary silica content. Horsetail contains up to 25% silica by dry weight, making it the highest known plant source of this mineral. Silica is essential for the production of collagen and for the process of calcification, where calcium is deposited into the bone matrix. A 2012 study in the International Biological Macromolecules found that silica from horsetail significantly increased the activity of osteoblasts, the cells responsible for building new bone tissue. Historical records show that horsetail was used by ancient Greek and Roman physicians specifically for fractures and bone weakness. The Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder wrote that horsetail was so effective at healing bones that it astonished those who witnessed its effects. The plant grows best in moist soil, along stream banks, or in containers kept consistently damp. Harvest the green stems in summer, dry them thoroughly, and prepare as a tea. Because the silica is locked in the fibrous structure, a long steep of at least 15 minutes extracts more of the mineral content. Do not harvest horsetail from roadsides or areas treated with chemicals. Grow it yourself in a container where you control the soil.
Plant number 4, red clover. Red clover has been studied more extensively for bone health than almost any other plant on this list, and the research points in the specific direction that matters enormously for women over 60. Red clover contains isoflavones, plant compounds that have a mild estrogen-like effect in the body. After menopause, when natural estrogen levels drop, bone loss accelerates because estrogen plays a key role in regulating the cells that break down bone tissue. A 2004 systematic review published in the journal Menopause examined multiple clinical trials and found that red clover isoflavones significantly reduced bone mineral density loss in postmenopausal women, particularly at the lumbar spine. A 2016 study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition reinforced these findings, showing that red clover extract had measurable protective effects on bone density when taken consistently over 12 months. The flowers also contain calcium and magnesium, adding mineral content on top of the hormonal benefit. Red clover is a nitrogen-fixing legume, which means it improves soil while it grows. It thrives in full sun and well-drained soil and can be planted as a cover crop or in dedicated beds. Harvest the flower heads when they are fully pink and open, dry them for tea, or use them fresh in salads. A cup of red clover tea daily provides a steady intake of the isoflavones that have been shown to slow the bone loss that accelerates after menopause. Plant number 5, comfrey. Comfrey carries a common name that tells you almost everything you need to know about its historical use. It was called knitbone. For centuries across Europe and Asia, comfrey was the plant you reached for when someone suffered a fracture, a deep bruise, or joint damage. The root and leaves contain allantoin, a compound that stimulates cell proliferation and tissue repair, along with high levels of calcium, potassium, and phosphorus. Allantoin penetrates tissue and accelerates the healing process by promoting the growth of new cells, which is why comfrey poultices were standard treatment for broken bones well into the 19th century. Modern herbalists still use comfrey externally for bone bruises, fractures, and osteoporosis-related joint pain. The caution with comfrey is important and must be stated clearly. The plant contains pyrrolidine alkaloids that are toxic to the liver when consumed internally over time. For this reason, comfrey is recommended for external use only. A poultice made from fresh or dried comfrey leaves applied to painful joints or over areas of known bone weakness delivers the healing compounds directly through the skin without entering the digestive system. Comfrey grows vigorously in almost any soil and spreads easily. Plant it in a dedicated patch or a large container where it has room to expand. Once established, it returns year after year with minimal care. Harvest leaves throughout the growing season, dry them for storage, and keep a jar of dried comfrey in your medicine cabinet for the aches that remind you of your bones. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. Think about the plants we have covered so far: nettle, dandelion, horsetail, red clover, and comfrey. How many of these have you walked past, pulled out, or sprayed without ever knowing what they could do for your body? Tell me in the comments which one surprised you the most. And if you have used any of them before, share your experience so others can learn from it.
Plant number 6, alfalfa. Alfalfa is usually discussed as animal feed or as a cover crop for improving soil, but its nutritional profile for human bone health deserves far more recognition than it receives. Alfalfa contains vitamin K, calcium, magnesium, and boron in a natural complex that the body can absorb efficiently. The vitamin K content is particularly important. Vitamin K is required for the production of osteocalcin, a protein that binds calcium to the bone matrix. Without sufficient vitamin K, calcium circulates in the blood and can deposit in arteries rather than attaching to bone where it belongs. The Framingham Heart Study, one of the longest-running health studies in the United States, found that higher vitamin K intake was associated with higher bone mineral density in older adults and a reduced risk of hip fracture. Alfalfa sprouts are remarkably easy to grow indoors with nothing more than a jar, a mesh lid, and a windowsill. In 2 to 3 days, seeds sprout into fresh greens that can be added to sandwiches, salads, or smoothies. For a more substantial harvest, alfalfa can be grown in garden beds where it will produce multiple cuttings per season. The deep root system draws minerals from soil layers that other plants cannot access, concentrating them in the leaves. A handful of alfalfa sprouts on your plate is a direct mineral delivery system for your bones. Plant number 7, sage. This is the one your grandmother probably grew, because sage is one of those plants that has been a staple of kitchen gardens for centuries without anyone making a big fuss about it. It seasons poultry, it smells like home, and it has been quietly doing something for bone health that most people never connected to the plant itself. Sage contains phytoestrogens, plant compounds that bind to estrogen receptors in the body and partially compensate for the drop in natural estrogen after menopause. A 2011 study in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology documented the estrogenic activity of sage and its traditional use for menopausal symptoms, including bone loss. The plant also delivers vitamin K, antioxidants, and anti-inflammatory compounds that protect bone tissue from the oxidative stress that accelerates aging. Sage is one of the easiest herbs to grow. It tolerates drought, thrives in containers, and survives winters that kill more delicate plants. It asks for full sun and soil that drains well, and in return, it produces aromatic leaves year after year. Harvest sprigs throughout the growing season and use them fresh or dried. Sage tea is a simple way to consume it regularly. Steep a tablespoon of fresh or dried leaves in hot water for 10 minutes. The flavor is earthy and slightly peppery, and the compounds that support your bones are present in every cup. Plant number 8, parsley. Parsley sits on the side of plates across America as an afterthought, a garnish that gets pushed aside and thrown away. That green sprig is one of the most concentrated natural sources of vitamin K available anywhere. A single cup of fresh parsley contains over 500% of the recommended daily intake of vitamin K. That is not a typo. Vitamin K, as we discussed with alfalfa, is the nutrient that activates osteocalcin and directs calcium into bone rather than allowing it to float freely in the bloodstream. The Nurses' Health Study, which followed over 70,000 women for more than a decade, found that those with the highest vitamin K intake had a 30% lower risk of hip fracture compared to those with the lowest intake. Parsley is the easiest way to close that gap without swallowing another pill. It also supplies calcium and boron, adding to the bone-supporting profile. Parsley grows readily in containers on a windowsill or in garden beds. It prefers rich soil and consistent moisture, and it will produce leaves continuously if you harvest from the outer stems and let the inner ones keep growing. Add fresh parsley to soups, stews, salads, eggs, and anything else you are cooking. A few tablespoons per day consumed consistently provide the vitamin K your bones need to hold on to calcium. The garnish that nobody takes seriously turns out to be one of the most powerful bone-building foods in your kitchen. Plant number 9, moringa. If you have not heard of moringa yet, that is about to change.
Moringa oleifera, sometimes called the drumstick tree or the miracle tree, is native to parts of Africa and Asia, where it has been used as both food and medicine for thousands of years. What makes moringa relevant to this conversation about bone health is its almost unbelievable mineral density. Dried moringa leaf powder contains 17 times more calcium than milk by weight. It also supplies magnesium, potassium, and vitamin K. A 2014 study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology found that moringa leaf extract significantly increased bone density and bone mineral content in animal models of osteoporosis. While human trials are still limited, the nutritional profile alone makes a compelling case. The calcium and magnesium arrive together in a natural matrix that the body recognizes and can absorb efficiently, unlike isolated calcium supplements that often pass through the system unabsorbed. Moringa can be grown in containers in warm climates or indoors with sufficient light. The leaves can be harvested fresh for cooking or dried and ground into a powder that keeps for months. A teaspoon of moringa powder stirred into a smoothie or soup delivers a meaningful dose of bone-supporting minerals in a form your body evolved to process. If you live in a climate where moringa cannot survive outdoors, growing it as a container plant that moves indoors during winter is a practical option. The tree grows quickly from seed and produces harvestable leaves within months. Here's what connects all 9 of these plants. Not one of them is rare. Not one of them requires a greenhouse or a degree in botany to grow. Nettle and dandelion and horsetail grow wild along fence lines and stream banks. Red clover and alfalfa thrive in ordinary garden soil. Comfrey and sage and parsley and moringa will grow in containers on a balcony or a patio with nothing more than sun, water, and occasional attention. The knowledge that these plants support bone health is not new. It has been documented in medical journals, confirmed in clinical studies, and preserved in traditional medicine systems for centuries. It simply doesn't get talked about in the places where most people go for health advice. Tell me in the comments which of these 9 you are going to grow first, and if you already have some of them on your property, tell me how you plan to use them differently now that you know what they're doing for your bones. If you found something here that your doctor never mentioned, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Everyday Harvest for more knowledge that helps you grow your own medicine. Until next time,